Star Wars Episode VII: The Force Awakens. The beginning of a new era for Star Wars and its fans. The film takes place 3 decades after Return of the Jedi and follows Rey, Finn, and Poe Dameron's search for Luke Skywalker and their fight alongside the Resistance led by veterans of the Rebel Alliance against Kylo Ren and the First Order, a successor organization to the Galactic Empire. Hello and welcome to Exploring Cinema. Before I get into this review, I just have to say this. I had given hope for a good Star Wars movie once Revenge of the Sith came out, because at the time I didn't like the movie. I like it much better now, but that's neither here nor there. I was very excited when I went to see Force Awakens the first time. I remembered shaking in anticipation, and it only got worse as the day got closer, or as the day of release got closer and closer. And as I was sitting in the theater waiting for the trailers to end and for the movie to start, I was so nervous at how it would start because I knew I wasn't going to hear that Buena Vista fanfare from 20th Century Fox. That day was over because this was a Disney film. But then I saw the Lucasfilm logo, and then I saw A Long Time Ago in a Galaxy Far, Far Away. And I actually started crying, because I never knew just how much I missed Star Wars until I got to see it once again on the big screen. And I know that there are others out there who felt the same way and probably did the same thing. But also, for those of you who do not like going to a movie during a premiere night of a big-name movie, just look at it this way. I hated going to the movies when there were crowds. I really did. I'm socially awkward. I'm very shy. But I knew that I had to for Force Awakens if I wanted to see it early, because it was a mixture of I really, really wanted to see it, and I didn't want to get spoiled on Facebook. And what I realized during the viewing was that pretty much everybody in the theater had been waiting for this just like I was. And not only that, when I would want to cheer, everybody else would cheer as well. Whenever I cried, many of them cried with me. It was the best overall theater experience that I had been a part of since Toy Story 3. And that was because at like that very climactic scene where we think that everything goes wrong, everybody in the theater started holding hands. And like I said, that was one of the greatest theater experiences of my time, or of any of my viewings. I don't know why I said of my time. That's weird. All I'm saying is that when you're watching something with people who are just as passionate about the thing that you are, then life, as well as people, doesn't seem so scary anymore. And it can even make the experience even more enjoyable. So just for everybody else who's shy, like me, and who's socially awkward, who don't like going to big crowds, just try it. Especially since we've got things like Justice League, Thor Ragnarok, and Last Jedi coming out. Please just try it for me, because it honestly changed how I look at theater going. Now, I apologize for rambling. I just wanted to say those few very short words. So, without further ado, let's get on to the review, which will be non-spoiler just in case somebody still hasn't seen the movie yet. For the new main characters, first we have Daisy Ridley in her breakout role as Rey, a scavenger from the planet Jakku. Really gave a flawless performance in this film. She is just so good. She felt so grounded and real. It didn't even feel like she was acting once. She gave one of the most powerful performances out of the newcomers, and I would even say that she maybe gave one of the best performances of 2014. She is definitely the heart and soul of this film. Second, we have John Boyega as Finn, a reformed First Order stormtrooper. Finn is definitely the most unique character for the Star Wars saga so far, simply because we had never thought of a stormtrooper in a positive light, and we had never had a character like that who came from evil and went to good like the way that he did, that we didn't absolutely love. Like, I mean, Vader's kind of a thing, but we didn't really get too much of him on the light side, really. And I'm not including his days as Anakin. That's bullshit. But Finn sees something early in the film that causes him to question everything he believes in, so that's why he leaves. And the reason why I'm not going to spoil, because it's actually really cool in my opinion. And Boyega, as a Star Wars fanboy, he shines in this film. He just has so much charisma, and he was so excited to be in this film, and it shows in his performance. Third, we have Oscar Isaac playing Poe Dameron, a Resistance pilot. Now him, I was more familiar with before seeing him in The Force Awakens. I had seen him in films like A Most Violent Year, and I had even seen him just a month before seeing Force Awakens. I saw him in Ex Machina, and I thought that he gave a really good performance in that movie, as well as Poe himself. He's definitely just the coolest character. He's not utilized as much as Ridley or Boyega in the film, but he's still very good. And finally, we have the film's antagonist, Adam Driver as Kylo Ren, the leader of the Knights of Ren and a dark-side Force user who is obsessed with Darth Vader. He's a very intriguing villain, being one who is powerful, dangerous, and believes that what he is doing is noble, and because of that you understand his motivations, all of which is the mark of a great and scary villain. And Driver is fantastic in this role, just amazing. And of course, we move on to the original three of the original trilogy. First, we have Han Solo, reprised once again by the great Harrison Ford, and he felt like Han Solo. This was the best, in my opinion, he gave the best performance as Han Solo in Force Awakens. The character wasn't written for this film in a way where he was referencing the previous films. He was written in such a loving way that you can tell that the writers understood the character, and Han Solo is definitely a highlight in this film. And of course, where would Han Solo be without Chewbacca? Their chemistry is still very strong, and I would actually argue that their interactions in this film are the best that they've ever had. There's even this running joke with the choice weapon that Han uses. It's hilarious every single time it gets brought up. Carrie Fisher reprises her role as Leia Organa once again, and honestly, I'm gonna try not to cry whenever I talk about her, because it just makes me dread saying during my future Last Jedi review the words Carrie Fisher reprises her role of Leia Organa for the last time. She's not given very much screen time, but she is still great in it, and hers was another character that was treated with respect when it came to the writing. I will hold off on saying goodbye once again until I make my Last Jedi video, but because if I'm going to cry about it, it might as well be in that review. And of course, we have Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker once again. Now, I will not say anything about him because it would actually go into very heavy spoiler territory no matter what I say, so I'm just going to leave it at, he's in the movie. There you go. He is actually in the movie. That's all I'm going to give you. Every performance in this film is great, even from the supporting actors such as Lupita Nyong'o, Andy Serkis, Domhnall Gleeson, Gwendolyn Christie, and Max von Sydow. It's the first Star Wars film in years, especially being the first after the prequels. It had to do a lot to make people believe in the franchise once again. I can say without a doubt they accomplished that. The script was written by J.J. Abrams, Michael Arndt, and Lawrence Kasdan, the man who helped make Empire Strikes Back and Raiders of the Lost Ark classics, and in my opinion, one of the greatest screenwriters of all time. And because Kasdan was back on, he knew just how to write the original trilogy character, seeing as he made Han Solo just amazing in Empire, as well as the dialogue and humor for Force Awakens. He helped a lot with that. I was especially surprised at how much I laughed in this film, especially when thinking about how little I laughed through the prequels. But, back to the writing, it was just written so much better than the prequels. In the prequels, there were a lot of scenes where characters would just walk around, telling us, basically, what was going on. Just tons of exposition. In this film, they tell by showing, and it's refreshing. They keep exposition very scarce throughout, and whenever it comes out, it is actually a bit needed. I can't really think of any scenes where any exposition wasn't needed, except for like maybe a couple of really small lines, but they're just nitpicks at this point. And I know a lot of people have complained that Force Awakens is too much like A New Hope, and I can actually see your point, but I didn't see it as a rehash. I saw it mostly as paying homage to A New Hope, as well as Empire and Jedi. The film actually calls back to all three. It's just that the original film's references are more blatant. Now, I said mostly because my one complaint with the story does have to do with the homage part, and that is Starkiller Base. I still kind of hate the idea of Starkiller Base, and it really does feel like just a new Death Star with a few tweaks. And of course, the visuals and practical effects. We finally got a Star Wars film that the filmmakers were uncompromising about their wish to include mostly practical effects, like alien creatures, droids, vehicles, and real locations and sets. Sure, we do still get a lot of CGI, and hell, the amount of CGI used in Force Awakens is actually, I know that it's more than Phantom Menace, but I don't know if it's like all the prequels together, but it does have way more CGI than Phantom Menace. And the reason why it's not as bad as the Phantom Menace was because CGI rendering has advanced light years since 1999, and because they found a way to balance it out so much that, as much as they could with those practical effects that they used. But as great as the visual and practical effects are, I do have a couple of complaints, including one regarding motion captured characters, Maz Kanata and Supreme Leader Snoke. While I loved Maz's character, and I was very intrigued by the mysterious of Snoke, each time they appeared on screen, it was very noticeable that they weren't real, that they were computer generated, or motion capture. And of course, the Rathtars. No more words. No more words. After watching this film, I believe that no one could have directed this film as well as Abrams did. I especially loved how he made long, wide takes and just the way that the camera was handled. And while the way he shot was while the way he shot in exciting bits were great, he especially succeeds in the much slower and more intimate scenes. The score is composed once again by the great John Williams, and it's amazing. I love the score so much. It was my favorite film score of 2014, and that wasn't just because it was a John Williams score or a Star Wars score. That entire year, I had found some scores that I enjoyed, but none of them moved me. But The Force Awakens did. Not only do we get the famous opening crawl music and a few homages to past Star Wars scores, we also get new music that sounds like Star Wars. The highlights for me, actually, are Rey's theme, which is a very hopeful sounding, even kind of reminded me of something that I'd hear in Harry Potter at first. And of course, The Ways of the Force, which is the final track before the credits, which is just so powerful by itself, slowly building up until its climax, and then it just throws in a much-needed throwback to the original trilogy, namely, A New Hope. And when I heard the last few seconds of the score, again, I cried, but for a different reason, which is something that I will actually talk about after I give my recap and my review. So to recap, Star Wars Episode VII, The Force Awakens is a great movie. Not just a great Star Wars film, a great movie with amazing characters, old and new, a great story that is definitely comparable to the original trilogy, but in the best of ways. Great and nostalgic inducing visuals, practical effects, and even, I didn't mention sound design. The sound design is amazing. Amazing direction from J.J. Abrams, and of course, another perfect Star Wars score from John Williams himself. Of course, every movie has its flaws, and this one did have a couple, but either way, I am going to give The Force Awakens a 4 out of 5 reels. So before I go, scratch it. So before I go, I cried at the end of the movie hearing the score, because at that point in my life, when Force Awakens came out, I had been away from my home for almost 2 years. I hadn't seen my family since about 4 months before I came to Washington State. So actually, it was almost 2.5 years, and I was really close with my family, so it really hurt me. While I was still, and am still, independent, growing up, I wasn't really a fan of... I wasn't really a fan of people, what with social anxiety and whatnot, but I always had my parents. So moving up here and moving all over the country right after I got out of high school, I never felt like I was home, even when I had been living here specifically for almost a year. And when I heard the last few minutes of that score, I actually remembered every time I would watch Star Wars with my family and the fun that I had with them. And just for a second, and I know this sounds silly, and I'm sorry, I'm actually tearing up, but I do have to say this. I know it's silly, but I actually felt like I was home, because in a time where I felt so alone, I didn't really have many good friends, and I was going through turmoil because just of all the shit that was going on with me, and I was almost 3,000 miles away from any family. I actually felt like I was home. I actually felt in my heart that I actually was home, and that was just, it moved me. It really did. And even that feeling, I felt it every single time that I went and rewatched Force Awakens, because I went 6 other times in the movie theater because I loved it so much. And I wanted to feel that again. And then afterwards, you know, it started to normalize, of course. I still feel that when I watch the movie, but it didn't become as apparent until I started living with my girlfriend. But anyway, I'm gonna finish this up. I'm gonna finish this part up before I get any worse. Okay, so now that I've gotten to every single review or every single Star Wars film to review, I can finally tell you guys my actual list from least to favorite. So at the very bottom is Attack of the Clones. Right above that is Phantom of the Opera. Is Phantom Menace. Right above that is Rogue One. Yeah, it is actually a little low, I know. Right above that is Revenge of the Sith, because I actually enjoyed a bit more of Revenge of the Sith than I did Rogue One in the long run. And then after that is Return of the Jedi, Force Awakens, Star Wars, and then Empire. Empire is still my #1 Star Wars film. And honestly, because I love Rian Johnson so much, the director of Looper and Last Jedi, I'm really looking forward to what he can do with Last Jedi. And I actually do want to see, is this the film that can actually replace Empire? Because I may be wrong, but I do constantly get this feeling that it's going to be amazing. Like, it's going to be a perfect film. I don't know why. I just can't shake the feeling. But anyway, I'm rambling too much. Thank you guys so much for watching. And again, listening to me ramble, because I do that way too much. How do you guys put up with me? So, what did you guys think of Force Awakens? Did you love it? Did you hate it? You were indifferent, haven't seen it yet? What were its strengths? Its weaknesses? Leave your opinions in the comment section down below, because I really want to know your thoughts. I welcome new perspectives. And be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more reviews and content. There's always more to come. And just for other ways to help support the channel, please check out the description down below. Thank you once again for watching, and farewell until the next video. Bye.